Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Cycle 5858. I am Amish Cycle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight, breaking news: the major tropical threat to the state of emergency now declared for part of the East Coast. We're watching two systems tonight. Hurricane Roberto, now a major storm, and is the second system on track to hit the U.S. It could be a Hurricane 2, likely making landfall along the East Coast. The new models just in tonight and what they show. Lee Goldberg is here to time this out. Former FBI Director James Comey indicted as we were on the air last night, and tonight President Trump now warning, quote, there will be others, after the president publicly called on his Attorney General Pam Bondi to go after his political enemies. Tonight, a disturbing video showing an ICE agent shoving a mother against a wall, sending her falling to the floor. Her husband detained just a moment before, all with their children watching. Tonight, that agent is suspended. In New York, the dramatic images at the UN today, the walkout, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was ready to speak. Tonight, Netanyahu vowing to, quote, finish the job in Gaza. First to ABC News, new reporting tonight on the gunman who opened fire on Park Avenue in New York City, killing 4 people, that office building home to NFL headquarters. What the medical examiner five-way now firings of Federers. Democrats say they're fighting to reverse Medicaid cuts and to keep health insurance premiums from going up. Outside New York City, the scare at the Ryder Cup, the explosion, fans seen running for cover. Also tonight, Amazon agreeing to a settlement. Some customers who claim they couldn't get rid of their Amazon Prime subscription will be paid back. I don't know if you're one of them. And the catcher and the history on the field, and then the quiet surprise off the field. Who is our person of the week? From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David York. Vinny, it's great to have you with us here on a very busy Friday night. We begin tonight with the growing concern in the Atlantic. 2 tropical threats growing stronger at this hour. One of them could eventually slam into the U.S. In fact,
all right, joining us now with reaction to Comey's indictment, the former FBI director, is our Attorney General. Pam Bondi is with us. I would imagine you're not allowed to get into the specifics of the case, so I won't waste your time asking you. However, when you looked at the magnitude of what Kash Patel is saying, a grand conspiracy that from the minute he came down the escalator with Melania, all the way through, Russia, 2 impeachments, all the way through the Hunter Biden laptop suppressed, all the way through weaponization. Pam, I'm nervous for the country when I put it all together.
You shouldn't be nervous any longer because Donald Trump is in office and the weaponization has ended. We've made that very clear. Whether you're a former FBI director, whether you're a former head of an intel community, whether you are a current state or local elected official, whether you're a billionaire funding organizations to try to keep Donald Trump out of office, everything is on the table. We will investigate you and we will end the weaponization. No longer will there be a 2-tier system of justice. And we are working hand in hand, Director Patel and I, Todd Blanche, with our incredible intel community, Tulsi Gabbard, John Radcliffe, going nonstop around the clock. People will be held accountable.
Okay, let me ask you about this. How is it possible? You were the Attorney General, in Florida, and you did a great job. You're now the Attorney General of our country. How does somebody like Letitia James, just one example, run on a platform that she's going to go after one man, one family, and one organization the way she did, and target them the way she did? How is that possible? Alvin Bragg, same thing.
Well, they thought they got away with it because they thought they would defeat Donald Trump at the polls, and they didn't. He won by an overwhelming majority. He is in office now. We have made it crystal clear the weaponization of this country has ended. Everything is on the table. We are investigating all the weaponization, all the wrongdoing that has happened. We are issuing subpoenas. We are looking at things around this country. People have to be held accountable. No one, Sean, is above the law. No one is above the law, and you will be held accountable. And, a very liberal grand jury in one of the most liberal jurisdictions in the country just indicted James Comey. Now, we know, of course, we have to go to trial. We'll have a great trial team, and everyone, of course, is innocent until proven guilty. However, we are going to trial in this case, and this is just the beginning.
Pam, you're talking about a change in culture. I had 2 relatives that were in the FBI, and in my family, they were deity. We looked up to them, and one of them is still alive, and he served for many, many years, and he could not believe all that was happening under Comey, and he wasn't too fond of Director Wray either. Restoring these institutions, the DOJ, FBI, our intel community, to their former greatness, how do we get there?
Well, by what we've been doing, by continuing, we will investigate everyone who committed wrongdoing, working hand in hand with all of our current agencies. Director Patel is restoring integrity. There are so many great men and women in the FBI, in DEA, in ATF, in our marshals. We're working every day to keep America safe, to make these horrible cities with Memphis. We're going to make Memphis safe. We're there this week. Just this week, Sean, we took 500 pounds of pills off this street. We took 800 pounds of fentanyl off this street. Sinaloa cartel. We're doing that, but we're also going to hold those accountable who have committed the worst of weaponization. And that's on all fronts. So the people of this country will be safe in more than one way.
I just want the truth. I just want all of it to come out. It seems like we're getting there between Tulsi and Cash and you.
Conference.
Yes, today it's the government's turn as they gather in Liverpool 14 months after their landslide victory. But it's hardly been plain sailing for Sir Keir Starmer.
Well, now the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, could apparently be gunning for the top job as well. Donald Trump wouldn't be too happy.
I'm not a fan of your mayor. I think he's done a terrible job. The mayor of London, but the nasty person. I think she's a friend of mine.
Along President Trump, say what you really think. And across the pond, he's also claiming that a deal on Gaza is very close, despite Benjamin Netanyahu vowing to fight on.
So it revealed that the king reportedly played a critical role in persuading President Trump that Ukraine could win the war against Russia.
And the EU is going to push ahead with plans for a drone wall to shield against Russian strikes.
Our debate this morning is all about matters of the heart. Is a 25-year age gap too much? Well, not for Sacha Baron Cohen, it would seem. We'll get stuck into that later in the programme.
And for the past 25 years, get this, the Pluke on the plinth has crowned Scotland's most dismal town, apparently. GB News Scotland reporter Tony Maguire will bring us the story behind this not very coveted title.
Can the Red Roses bring it home? England face Canada in the Women's Rugby World Cup final at Twickenham later today with hopes high for a historic victory on home soil.
Hello there, good morning. It's a wet start to the weekend in the west with a couple of rain warnings in force. Stay tuned and I'll have all the details.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Anne Diamond, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Postal workers on the picket lines this Friday night. Canada Post employees walk off the job again, protesting the government's operations overhaul.
The union was given no choice but to be able to voice their concerns.
What will it take to end the dispute? Israel's prime minister lashes out at the UN and Canada.
Murdering Jews pays off.
Benjamin Netanyahu's angry rebuke for countries recognizing Palestinian statehood as dozens of diplomats walk out. Plus, history-making match, how Canada's women's rugby team tackled their way to this weekend's World Cup final. And trusty steeds, the horses helping to heal Canadian soldiers and first responders.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Canada's 55,000 postal workers are back on the picket lines tonight, one day after the federal government proposed sweeping changes to the postal service. Canada Post facilities were shut down across the country today. With a few exceptions, mail is no longer being accepted or processed. Canada Post says it had planned to present a new offer today, but it is now reassessing the situation. Taria Isri reports on what it will take to get postal workers and your mail moving again.
Countrywide protests against controversial reforms. Postal workers hit picket lines in nearly every corner of the country, rallying against a major overhaul they say caught them off guard. It's nothing to do with the workers, nothing. It is a blatant, intentional strategy that has been put in place. The sudden strike came hours after the federal government gave the company the green light to scale back services.
The bottom line is this.
Canada Post is effectively insolvent.
The changes include ending door-to-door delivery over the next decade for the 4 million Canadians who still receive it, and clearing the way for the closure of some rural post offices.
The union was given no choice but to be able to voice our concerns and dissatisfaction with the government.
Mail and parcel delivery is now on hold with some exceptions. Government assistance checks will still go out for things like old age security, the Canada Child Benefit, and
And creators spark inspiration. Thought leaders and innovators shape what's next. The biggest names are on France 24. Liberté, égalité, actualité.
Welcome back. You're watching France 24. This is Daybreak, our headlines this Saturday. The countdown begins in Iran, where UN sanctions are due to come back into force at the end of this Saturday. It comes after the UN Security Council rejected a last-ditch effort to delay the snapback of sanctions over its nuclear program. Look at the latest from Tehran with our correspondent Saeed Azimi. There were protests both in and outside UN headquarters as Benjamin Netanyahu delivered his General Assembly speech to a partially empty room. The Israeli Prime Minister was defiant and didn't mention a Gaza peace plan, despite Donald Trump saying that a deal was close. And Moldova votes this Sunday in key parliamentary elections. They could see the pro-EU ruling party lose its majority to populist or pro-Kremlin forces. Our correspondent reports near the pro-Russian enclave of Transnistria, where residents are still marked by their turbulent history.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has struck a defiant note as he addressed the United Nations in New York, vowing to finish the job against Hamas in Gaza. Before he started speaking, dozens of diplomats and officials walked out. Netanyahu denounced decisions by several countries to recognize a Palestinian state. He accused Western leaders of buckling under pressure. Meantime, US President Donald Trump says he's close to a deal to end the war in Gaza. Speaking to reporters outside the White House, Trump was upbeat about an agreement that would also see the release of all hostages, but he remained vague on the details of any possible deal. Tech billionaire Elon Musk has been named in newly released documents linked to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The records, published by House Democrats, are part of an investigation into Epstein's powerful network of contacts. The documents also mention other high-profile figures, including Britain's Prince Andrew and Bill Gates. This is DW News from Berlin. There's more news on our website, dw.com.
The last piece of the jigsaw.
Next Saturday on ABC TV and ABC iView. Today, diplomats turn their backs on Israel's Prime Minister as he slammed Western nations for recognizing a Palestinian state at the UN.
When the most savage terrorists on earth are effusively praising your decision, you didn't do something right.
A decade-long dispute ends, and mining magnate Clive Palmer is ordered to pay $13 million, claiming to be a foreign investor. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Prince Andrew are among prominent names listed in newly released Jeffrey Epstein files. And the AFL Grand Final between Geelong and Brisbane underway at the MCG. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Ruby Cornish. Israel's Prime Minister has criticised countries, including Australia, for recognising Palestine as a free state. Benjamin Netanyahu used his UN General Assembly address to reiterate his intention to eliminate Hamas from Gaza. Several officials and diplomats staged a mass walkout before Mr. Netanyahu took the podium. During his speech, the Prime Minister claimed Israel feels every Palestinian death deeply. That's despite the IDF continuing its assault in Gaza City. Mr. Netanyahu also promised to continue Israel's fight, even if it means doing it alone.
The leaders who recognize the Palestinian state this week sent to the Palestinians, it's a very clear message. Murdering Jews pays off. Well, I have a message for these leaders. When the most savage terrorists on earth are effusively praising your decision, you didn't do something right. You did.
is 6 a.m. on today's breakfast programme. Sir Keir Starmer has set his sights on tackling child poverty as Labour Party conference kicks off. It is Saturday, the 27th of September. Well, many of the country's largest education unions call on the Prime Minister to scrap the two-child benefit cap, branding that policy as cruel. The billionaire Elon Musk denies that he planned a trip to the island that belongs to the dead paedophile Jeffrey Epstein after Musk's name appears in newly released files. Nurseries confirm they are working with external specialists to investigate a cyber attack as the hackers tell us they will release the profiles of more children and employees. And Team Europe took control on the first day of the Ryder Cup, coming out top in both sessions. We'll show you the best of the action from Beth Page Black. Hello, good morning, and thank you for being with us. Sir Keir Starmer is facing demands that he scrap the two-child benefit cap as the Labour Party conference begins in Liverpool later. Several of the country's largest education unions have said an announcement today to give 500,000 more children free school meals is not enough to give them the best start in life. Well, in their letter, they say, as school leaders, head teachers, governors, teachers and support staff, we are writing to you about the forthcoming government child poverty strategy and the critical need for it to fully scrap the two-child limit policy. This poverty-producing policy is harming the lives of hundreds of thousands of children and young people in our classrooms, and we are calling on the government to put an end to this autumn. Right, let's bring in our political correspondent Amanda Akaz for a bit more on this. Joining us from Westminster. Morning to you, Amanda. So there, the pressure building on the government to scrap this cap.
Well, yes, indeed. No one would deny that it's been an exceedingly rocky start to the new political year for Sir Keir Starmer.
Headline news this hour. A potential end in sight in the nearly 2-year Israel-Hamas war. US President Donald Trump touts a breakthrough in talks over Gaza, claiming negotiators were close to finalizing an agreement.
I think it's a deal that will get the hostages back. It's going to be a deal that will end the war. It's going to be a deal which is going to be peace. Please, order in all.
Dozens of delegates walked out during Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech at the UN, condemning Western support to recognize a Palestinian state.
When the most savage terrorists on earth are effusively praising your decision, you didn't do something right. You did something wrong, horribly wrong.
China's Premier Li Qiang urges global unity and multilateralism at the UN, criticizing trade barriers and positioning Beijing as a voice of reason amid growing international divisions.
Yes, man.
Plus, a fire at South Korea's national data center cripples key government systems with no clear timeline for recovery. Some ministries' websites, the mobile identification system, postal services, and legal databases remain inaccessible. Authorities are still investigating the exact cause of the fire. And that is the latest from the CNA newsroom.
This is Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm also at this hour. A potential end in sight in the nearly 2-year Israel-Hamas war. US President Donald Trump touts a breakthrough in talks over Gaza, claiming negotiators were close to finalizing an agreement.
I think it's a deal that will get the hostages back. It's going to be a deal that will end the war. It's going to be a deal which is going to be peace. Please, order in all.
Dozens of delegates walked out during Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech at the UN, condemning Western support to recognize a Palestinian state.
When the most savage terrorists on earth are effusively praising your decision, you didn't do something right. You did something wrong, horribly wrong.
China's Premier Li Qiang urges global unity and multilateralism at the UN, criticizing trade barriers and positioning Beijing as a voice of reason amid growing international divisions. Plus, a fire at South Korea's national data center cripples key government systems with no clear timeline for recovery.
Africa News. The news.
As Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took the stage at the UN General Assembly, dozens of delegates walked out in protest. At the same time, supporters in the balcony stood for a loud ovation. In his speech, Netanyahu slammed recent moves by several countries to recognize Palestinian statehood.
This week, the leaders of France, Britain, Australia, Canada, and other countries unconditionally recognized the Palestinian state. Well, I have a message for these leaders. When the most savage terrorists on earth are effusively praising your decision, you didn't do something right. You did something wrong, horribly wrong.
Despite growing international isolation, Netanyahu has vowed to press on with the war, claiming that recognizing Palestine only fuels terrorism against Jews and others.
So here's the uncomfortable truth. The persistent Palestinian rejection of a Jewish state in any boundary is what has driven this conflict for over a century. It is still driving it. Giving the Palestinians a state 1 mile from Jerusalem after October 7th is like giving Al-Qaeda a state 1 mile from New York City after September 11th. This is sheer madness. It's insane, and we won't do it.
Netanyahu has rejected accusations of genocide in Gaza, blasting them as false. An independent UN inquiry recently concluded Israel is committing war crimes, citing not just mass destruction, but intent.
The United Nations has significantly expanded its blacklist of companies accused of violating Palestinian rights through ties to Israeli settlements. 68 new firms from around the world have been added, targeting businesses in sectors from construction to tourism.
Businesses working in contexts of conflict have a due diligence responsibility to ensure that their activities do not contribute to human rights abuses. We call on businesses to take appropriate action to address the adverse human rights impacts of their activities. Where business enterprises identify that they have caused or contributed to adverse human rights impacts, they should provide for or cooperate in remediation through appropriate processes.
The United Nations expanded blacklist aims to increase pressure, yet its practical impact remains unclear. The update intensifies a long-standing diplomatic clash over Israeli settlements in the West Bank.
Real Madrid are putting the final touches on preparations ahead of a high-stakes clash with Atletico Madrid at the Metropolitano Stadium. The Madrid derby set to light up the Spanish capital this Saturday. Injured stars like Antonio Rudiger were absent from training, but the rest of the squad is pushing for full strength. Real Madrid's coach promises a thrilling showdown. Yes, it is different going to the Metropolitano with any other club versus going with Real Madrid because of the healthy rivalry that exists, and that I think is beautiful, something that has been enjoyed for many years and hopefully we can continue to enjoy.
Breaking news tonight, the state of emergency as a new hurricane threat emerges. The twin systems in the tropics, Roberto just upgraded to a Category 3 hurricane as Imelda fires up just ahead of it. The tropical cyclone's deadly path through the Caribbean, and the latest track just in that has it going closer to the Carolinas. The governor of South Carolina saying they're preparing for widespread flooding, plus the dangerous weather in the southwest, rising floodwaters, and relentless hail in Phoenix, delaying hundreds of flights tonight. Also breaking, former FBI Director James Comey indicted as President Trump threatens more indictments against others. We'll take you inside the grand jury room and the case being run by a U.S. attorney with no prosecution experience. My sit-down with the president of Iran, we ask him about new satellite photos alleging a new secret nuclear site being built and why he says, quote, we're not afraid of war, but we do not seek war. Clashes over ICE detentions, this violent video of an ICE officer throwing a woman to the ground in New York, now officials calling it unacceptable. Plus the Des Moines school superintendent just arrested by ICE. What happened? Our NBC News exclusive, the U.S. preparing options for military strikes on drug targets inside of Venezuela. The station's refusing to air Jimmy Kimmel tonight, saying he's back on. Why the standoff is finally over. And the flu fighter, how a battle that nearly cost one little boy his life is leaping off the pages of a new comic book and inspiring hundreds of his classmates. Nightly News starts right now. This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
Good
evening. I'm Amna Nabaz.
And I'm Jeff Bennett. On the News Hour tonight.
Yeah, I hope they're honest. You can't let this happen to a country.
President Trump predicts more of his political opponents will face prosecution after his Justice Department indicts former FBI Director James Comey, who's already pledging to fight back.
I'm innocent, so let's have a trial.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu divides global leaders at the United Nations General Assembly, vowing to finish the job against Hamas in Gaza.
And actress Scarlett Johansson takes on a new role behind the camera for her feature film directorial debut of Eleanor the Great.
I have to approach my job with empathy and then let them have their own feelings about the characters and what they do.
Major funding for the
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. A federal grand jury has indicted former FBI Director James Comey on 2 criminal charges, which include making a false statement to Congress and the obstruction of a congressional proceeding during his testimony back in 2020 about Russian interference in the 2016 election. Thursday's indictment of Comey comes just days before a statute of limitations on the charges was due to expire, and less than a week after President Trump installed Lindsay Halligan, his personal lawyer, as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia to replace her predecessor, Eric Siebert, who resigned under pressure from Trump because he refused to bring charges against Comey. Here's Comey responding to his indictment.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid.
James Comey's son-in-law, Troy Edwards Jr., resigned from his position as a national security prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia immediately after the indictment was announced. Earlier this year, the Justice Department fired Comey's daughter, who Comey was just referring to in his video, Maureen Comey, for her position as a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. She is sued, claiming she was fired for political reasons. Maureen Comey successfully prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein co-conspirator, convicted sex offender Ghislaine Maxwell, and Comey was involved in the investigation of Jeffrey Epstein. Meanwhile, the New York Times is reporting the Justice Department is calling on federal prosecutors to investigate the billionaire George Soros's philanthropic group, the Open Society Foundations. The DOJ's directive lists possible charges ranging from arson to material support for terrorism. In response, Soros called out the Trump administration for, quote, political.
Who is the next person on your list in this retribution?
It's not a list, but I think there'll be others.
The feud between the President of the United States and the former Director of the FBI is headed to federal court.
I'm innocent, so let's have a trial.
Also tonight, the President's name is not in the Epstein files released today, but some other big names are. A tropical weather system batters the Dominican Republic and could be headed for the U.S. East Coast as Hurricane Imelda. There you go. And Steve Hartman with a foul ball and a gesture, oh so fair.
I was so shocked, I just didn't know what to say.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Maurice Dubois. John Dickerson is off tonight. They sounded like two fighters about to enter the ring. President Trump called former FBI Director James Comey a liar who got caught. Comey called Trump a tyrant and said, I'm not afraid. All this after the Trump Justice Department indicted Comey on charges he lied to Congress and obstructed a congressional investigation. Comey said he's innocent and added, let's have a trial. And so it appears they will. Justice correspondent Scott McFarland is in Washington keeping track of all of this. Scott.
Maurice, we've learned it was a divided grand jury in a private room at a courthouse in Virginia that met late into the day yesterday before the grand jury stepped forward and said they were indicting one of President Trump's highest profile opponents. The man who was once America's top cop,
No charges are appropriate in this case.
is now one of its highest profile criminal defendants. Former FBI Director James Comey faces a judge October 9th to be formally